Hello, I'm Noel. This is Antonio from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company. I've been allowed to have one more attempt to start this vlog without messing it up. And this week we thought we'd talk briefly about working overseas. We're just about to go and do another slightly unusual job, which we're quite excited about. So we'll be taking Gulliver onto a cruise ship and performing on the ship for the passengers on board for the next couple of weeks. But although we'll talk about that afterwards, I'm sure, we thought it made us think a little bit about the fact that we've been quite lucky to have a fair number of jobs that have taken us to some interesting places. So we thought we'd just talk very briefly about the kind of fun of working overseas, but also
the perils, the tribulations.
Absolutely, and there are a few.
So we first went overseas in our very sort of first year of a proper year really as a company in 2013, which was our first Edinburgh year. We also took Northanger Abbey to Austria, and this happened because I believe Sandra and Andrew had seen us in Edinburgh.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Actually, I think, to be honest, all of our overseas touring in some form has happened because of Edinburgh via sort of whatever route. So yeah, they saw the show there and thought that they wanted to bring it over to Austria. So we went and we did a couple of performances there for them just before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the same week that we had our wedding. Actually, we went.
Yeah, people thought we were crazy for going off when there was a wedding kind of to plan and just about to happen.
And we had a lovely time. I think in a way that was the first time we'd ever taken a show on the plane, which is always a nightmare. We've spoken about that before. You have to hand over your beloved, very carefully made puppets and props and put them in the hold of the plane and just hope that they arrive in one piece. And when we got there, that was also our first experience of people not quite understanding how big the trunks are. And I believe it was I don't know, maybe a VW Polo or something.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
And we had to we squeezed all the stuff in. I think I sat basically with the trunk kind of on me in the back.
You did not have a comfortable journey.
Not particularly, but it was funny.
Because we actually flew into Germany, I think, didn't we?
Because then we had to, that's right, we had to drive. I mean, it was very, very funny, but it was our first sort of lesson of how do we explain how big those items actually are.
Well, it was the beginning of kind of learning very gradually how to travel with the stuff. Obviously, when we tour in the UK, we're very kind of compact, and we make sure that everything fits into the trunks and that it's easy to get around. But there's no way of getting around it, even if you've got a compact show. To be able to take that on a plane is quite a challenge. So yeah, that was the first trip.
And
interesting
then
first
from
experience.
that Edinburgh as well, to the 2013 Edinburgh, we had an email about going to California, which I know we've mentioned that email before because it was a sort of one-liner and we thought it might be a hoax, but it wasn't. It turned out to be real. And then in 2014, in December, we took Northanger Abbey over to Santa Monica and we did a couple of weeks of performances over there. We
did 10 shows there.
Yeah, in the ED space at the Broad Stage in Santa Monica, a beautiful studio theatre. Had a great time. And then while we were there, that's how we met the Clark Library, who have then subsequently commissioned 2 shows from us, which has resulted in 2 more trips to LA, which we've thoroughly enjoyed, except for the general frightening prospect of taking puppets on the plane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was nice to go and perform over there, wasn't it? It was a different kind of reaction as well to Northanger Abbey, which was an interesting experience to sort of perform for an American audience. And we also, although we've been over to California a couple of times since then to do the 2 commissions for the Clark Library, we also briefly had a trip over to Salem.
Oh yes, we did. Yeah, that was more recent. We went to Boston, didn't we, and then Salem? Yeah,
we did, yeah. And that's kind of it was a potential collaboration, and we kind of gone out there for research.
COVID put pay to that one, unfortunately.
It did, but you never know. Perhaps we can, at some point in the future,
rekindle that one.
Yeah, talk them into doing something in the future.
And then there was China.
Yes, and that was another really interesting one.
It was crazy. We went there I think we were only there for, it was less than a week, wasn't it? Or just a week?
I think it was a week.
It was only just. And then we did about 10 performances over 3 days or something ridiculous.
So we took Alice's Adventures in Wonderland there,
To Beijing.
Yeah, to Beijing, which obviously Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is popular everywhere in the world, really. So no surprise that that was the title that they were interested in. And originally we were supposed to go for a couple of weeks. We were supposed to go to
Shanghai,
Beijing, Shanghai, and somewhere else as well. I can't remember.
No, me neither.
But unfortunately, we couldn't make it work with the schedule. So in the end, we just went for the 1 week and went to Beijing. Yeah, had a crazy time really, because it was fascinating and it was absolutely lovely. The people there were brilliant and really took good care of us and were really, really welcoming. But obviously, there's a huge cultural difference and a massive language barrier. So being able to communicate is a real struggle. We were lucky enough to have someone come with us who had spent some time living in Shanghai.
In Beijing.
In Beijing, beg your pardon. So fortunately, they had a more of a grasp of the lay of the land and managed to sort a few things out for us as well, because it meant that thanks to them, we were able to arrange, even though we were there for such a short time, we were able to arrange to go and do a few things, go and see a bit more of the city, go and see the Great Wall. We
also got taken around the city by people who lived there, so we had some lovely ladies who took us around everywhere and helped us order and all that sort of stuff, and basically ordered for us everywhere.
And then we did like you say, we did about 10 shows in the Long Fu Theatre, which was I think like 500 seats. And it was really busy.
It was packed.
They were lovely audiences. We tried to speak a little bit of Chinese at the beginning and say hello. Probably butchered it, but they were really generous about that as well.
Yeah, they were very sweet.
And they were just very lovely.
Yes, so that was another crazy trip, but a fun trip. And then obviously last year we went to Dubai with our giant puppets to do the expo there, which was another quite crazy trip really, very, very quick. We were only there for a couple of days and we had many problems with our trunks over there, with cars not being big enough to fit them in and then not being able to get them from one end of the site to the other and all that sort of thing.
And that really was a challenge, because previously we've taken shows where it's maybe a couple of trunks and that's been a struggle, but for that one I think we had five.
I think we had five.
And that was the only way that we could transport these puppets, because
it was because we had Alice in Wonderland with us as well though. It wasn't just the puppets. So the puppets fit into 2 large and 1 small, so they fit into 3, and then there was Alice which fits into 2. But yeah, that was but it was fun. We had a great time, and we had lovely Anna working with us, who was just so brilliant because she was so tolerant of all of the ridiculousn's
she was brilliant.
It was involved with,
because there were so many problems. And interestingly enough, I mean, getting it on the plane, when you've worked on a show in the however you've created the show, because all the stuff has been made by us, and because it's all because so much time and love goes into it.
Well, and it's unique as well. It's not like you can go and
you can't just
you can't go and buy a new one.
Exactly. You can't just quickly knock one up or quickly buy a new one. So any time that you have to pack that stuff into the trunk and then hand it over at the airport and wish it the best and sort of think, okay, well, hopefully we'll see you at the other end. It's always that is a really
and the thing is
part of it.
We have been burned, as it were. You know, we nothing, thank goodness, so far, and touch wood and everything. The actual puppets and everything inside, we've packed well enough that they've survived. But when we went to China, we got there and the large trunk that we had was completely stoved in at the one
there was
corner.
A massive gouge in the corner and it broke.
It literally looked like it had been run over.
It did, yeah.
And then there was another time when we've had suitcases stoved in at corners, and there was another one where the whole of the tarp. When we took the big trunk, we bought a new big trunk because we'd repaired that one that got stoved in the corner. We had to buy another one to take the big puppets. That one.
When we went to Dubai,
had a punch hole
through the bottom. And this is a solid wooden trunk.
Aluminium,
it's also covered with aluminium sheet.
Yeah.
So it takes a bit of force at least to punch through it. So taking it on the plane is always harrowing, and it's almost a shame in a way, because it means that for any trip when we're going overseas, that's the thing you really worry about and you focus on it.
Yes, can't look forward to going really until you're there and you know that everything is safe.
But then in Dubai, that was crazy when we went there for the Expo, because even the transport on the ground there, nobody seemed to understand how big these trunks were, even though we gave them the measurements at every stage. It was hilarious.
It was funny, and not least
very
because they
difficult.
must have had far bigger things that would have been, there was so much going on, there must have been far bigger things, but I guess because we're in that interim, you know, almost like we're not big enough to be, you know what I mean, to be considered really large and therefore have proper transportation.
I think we sort of said we've got 5 trunks and people must just imagine 5 suitcases.
I think so. It was very funny, but it was all sorted and very friendly, and everything was very, you know, it wasn't like we didn't have any real struggles. It just was slightly tricky.
So we are excited now to have kind of another interesting experience. And what's nice about it is that it's an opportunity to go and see a place
that we probably would never have gone to.
Yeah, that you might not go to and be a part of something that, you know, something unusual. So going to China, that was a really interesting and unusual experience to perform there as well. Going to Dubai, being part of the Expo was fascinating. Being able to go over and perform in California, amazing. And now to go and perform on this cruise ship is going to be a really, really interesting experience. The ship is stopping at some interesting places, so hopefully we'll at least get a chance to jump off and have a little look around. But also, I don't think that really doing on a cruise of this type is something that we would be able to do otherwise. So to be asked to take the show on board here.
Yes, we certainly couldn't afford to go ourselves, could we?
To what looks like a remarkable theatre space as well on board this ship. Should be really, really interesting.
So we're looking forward to that. So really, I suppose what we're saying is that we're very lucky. Our slightly strange job takes us to some weird and wonderful places, and we are very grateful, if a little trepidatious, always, to take our stuff on the plane.
Yeah. And if you're watching overseas and you want us to come and visit you, let us know.
Let us know. We'll be there. If you are enjoying the vlogs, please do give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel. Welcome to the new subscribers. I noticed that we've had quite a few more over the last couple of weeks, so we're obviously heeding our words, and thank you so much, because it really does make a massive difference to us. Thank you, and we will see you again next time.